So, we all know about 11, 11, 11. We actually have one more 11. It is 11 a.m. We have to add that. Obviously on the 11th day of the 11th month of the 11th year. So we got an extra 11. And I'm a little freaked out by that. Anybody else think that's a little too crazy? I mean, this is either going to be, the way I see it, this is either going to be the best, most earth-shaking presentation you've ever heard, or somehow or other during this hour, we are going to ascend together to the next dimension, or nothing. I mean, just nothing. Nothing will happen. It's meaningless. It's useless. We don't care. It's just goofy. So, before we get started with the real presentation, on the sign outside it says, who's winning the local digital awards? Who's winning the local digital awards for $1? Who's winning them? Somebody. Who's winning them? Who said that? Okay, for $1. Now, you may be wrong. I'm giving it to you anyhow. You may be wrong, because when we go through some of the data in this presentation, you may elect, you don't have to, but you may elect to give it back. You may say, well, damn, I was wrong. And the thing on the agenda was wrong. But maybe what we'll do is we'll take a vote. We'll look at the data and we'll say, well, is it newspapers or is it something else? So we'll figure out a little bit later in this presentation. So bear with me. We'll get there. I'm giving out more money, by the way.
I still claim it's the newspapers because it's not the direct newspaper, but their expanded site.
Okay.
From the newspaper.
Right, that's right. I knew that's what you meant. So here's basically the topic, Digital First, how American newspaper companies are maneuvering in the digital publishing world and transforming an entire industry. That's what we're going to talk about. Oh. You gotta bear with me on this. You gotta humor me. You gotta let me play this. It's about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I promise, no more. I guarantee I'm going to be the only speaker over the 3 days that's going to dance in front of you. Newspaper people from Morris don't count. What is that? What's going on? For $1? Okay. Shit. I have to give out that $1. It's way too easy. You ruined all my fun. I didn't think anybody would get it that fast. How'd you know it was pumpkins? Seeds. He saw the seeds. Smart guy. Okay. I'm still going to make you watch the video because there's a point. You dance with me? Come on. Who would have guessed pumpkins at this point in time? Who are not from Jacksonville? Anybody? Anybody else would have guessed pumpkins? Wouldn't have known. How about now? Okay. I wish I had an edited version of this, Kevin. They're coming. They're coming. Who would have guessed by now? Still wouldn't have known. Watermelons, right? Okay, who would have guessed by now? Give it away. There they are. I promise you there's a point to all this. Music by Pinegrass Medley by the Acousticals and Jacksonville.com. Video by John M. Fletcher at Jacksonville.com. Okay, so what's the point? Digital first, not your father's Oldsmobile, not your father's newspaper. There's a major shift, folks, in newspapering around the world. We're going to talk about that major shift. It is not what you think it is any longer. It is a whole new world, and that's really what this entire presentation is about. This Halloween multimedia is but a small example. Worldwide, I don't know of any industry that's shifting and changing as fast as this one is. So the question is, why? So what's that video about? What's the point of all that? So I've been in newspapering my entire life. Started with print, obviously, because really the web is like a mid-90s phenomenon, right? And I was in newspapers easily a decade and a half before that. So what's happening with that? So in the old days, really up until very, very recently, and for decades before that, here's what would have happened Halloween time. Some editor who was bored would have said, okay, you reporter, you photographer, it's Halloween, it's pumpkin time, get out in the field, take a picture of some pumpkins, and write a story about it. And it would have been put in the newspaper the next day or a few days later, and everybody would have been bored to death. It would have gotten hardly any readership, and so today, that's not acceptable. Certainly with mobile, certainly with the web, we got to do more than that, and we are. So our friends, my friends in Jacksonville, got creative this year. They sent this guy out into the fields and said, time-lapse photography, watching over a period of weeks and months what growing a pumpkin looks like, what that phenomenon is like. That's a little different than sending a photographer out in the field and shooting a still photo. Let's do it. It's a little bit of investment in time and money. Let's do it. It's a small example. It is a small example. I don't want to make a big deal out of the fact that we went and did that with time-lapse cameras and so forth and so on. But what it represents is a shift. It represents a content shift. And I am telling you every day at Jacksonville.com and at SavannahNow.com and at our 10 other daily newspapers, that sort of thing is happening again and again and again. So okay, it represents a shift. Why? What's this shift all about? Why is there this major shift across an entire industry into this digital space? Well, we really have no choice. We have no choice. Look at those numbers right over there. Where do you get your news? So last year, 41% of the people who were surveyed in this Pew survey said, well, they get most of their news online, and 31% said they get it from newspapers. What's that number going to look like next year? Right? It's going to be 51% and 21%. We're smart enough in our industry to know that. A few years ago, it would have been reversed, 31 and 41%. So that's one reason why we have no choice. Another reason is the money. Money drives everything, right? You can't read that chart. It's too small, but here's what I can tell you it means. This is public information. I don't think I'm giving anything away. Revenue in our company declined from $401 million in our newspaper division of 12 daily newspapers, declined from $401 million in 2006 to $243 million last year, and the losses are continuing. It's not cyclical, it's secular. What does that mean? We can sit around and we can say to ourselves, well, it's the recession. Of course the numbers are down. We don't believe that anymore. We wanted to believe that a couple years ago, but we don't believe it now. We say it's secular. We say the world's changing. And our industry is changing, and we have to change with it. We say we want to stay in business. We want to stay in business. Others in our industry, across the United States and across the world, this is a global phenomenon, people. We have to stay in business. Well, that's different than wanting to stay in business. I mean, there are lots of people that want to stay in business in a changing environment. We say we want to, we also say we have to. Why do we have to? We're protected. We're protected. Why do we have to stay relevant? Because we're protected. So, come on. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution is part of the Bill of Rights. A little bit of history class here, but it's important. The amendment prohibits, the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution prohibits the making of any law impeding the exercise of free religion. Is that a good thing? Everybody want that? The Constitution says we have to protect everyone in the country to be able to practice the religion of that choice. That's a good thing, right? Right? Anybody have any issue with that? The second thing it says, it stops anyone from abridging our freedom of speech. That's a good thing, right? We want to have we want to be able to say as a society everything that we need to say, everything that we want to say. And the third thing that it does is it prohibits the making of laws that would infringe on our freedom of the press. That's the third thing that it does. That's a pretty good thing, isn't it? You want to protect yourselves from being able to practice whatever religion, right? And to be able to say what you want. And it equally protects us from anyone infringing on the freedom of the press. So, something tells me that you might not think that's quite as important as the free exercise of religion and the freedom of speech, but hang on. So, a newspaper, a couple of quotes here for you. First one is from a guy named Colonel Robert McCormick, who doesn't mean much to most of the folks in this room. He's a very famous American publisher, Chicago Tribune, 1925. A newspaper is an institution developed by modern civilization to present the news of the day, to foster commerce and industry, to inform and lead public opinion, and to furnish that check upon government which no constitution has ever been able to provide. That check upon government which no constitution has ever been able to provide. Were it left to me to decide, here's a second quote, were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter. This guy says he'd rather have newspapers without a government. Anyone care to guess? $1 to somebody who can guess who said that. But it's close. It's close.
Thomas Jefferson.
Who said that? Jeez. This is a smart crowd. This is a very smart crowd. Happy to give away this money, especially for that one. 1787. We say that we have to stay in business. We are the only protected industry by the U.S. Constitution. The press is the only protected business by the U.S. Constitution, probably the most important document that's ever been written in the last 500 years on planet Earth. I mean, that's a personal opinion, and it's subjective and all that, but I think it's probably the most important document that's been written in the last 5 or so centuries, the U.S. Constitution. And the U.S. Constitution, I want to repeat it, protects only one business in the United States. It's the press. The reason why? It's the only thing that will furnish that check upon government, which no constitution, even a constitution, can do. So here's the proof. And then I'll move on to another point. Let the map speak for itself. Where do you guys want to live? Blue and green, okay, freedom of the press. If it's blue, like that, there is the most freedom of the press. If it's green, USA, a little less. Might shock you to think that Stockholm, Norway, Sweden have more freedom of the press and Canada than we do, but a lot of freedom of the press, a really, really good thing. So the yellow and orange, and you've already figured this out, you don't need me to explain it to you, basically means the least freedom of the press. The least showing up in China, some countries in the Middle East, some countries in Africa. There are issues in South America with freedom of the press, in Mexico. So really, where do you guys want to live? Can you possibly equate freedom of the press with what's happening in those countries? Now, maybe some of you guys want to live over here or over here. So I'm not telling you shouldn't, but I'm telling you it's not where I want to live. I want to live here or here or here, because freedom of the press equates with fair and free and open government and fair and free and open lives. Point of all this is to say that we have to stay in business. That's our mission. We are on a mission, seriously, this is going to sound crazy. This is Father Michael speaking. A couple of weeks ago, gave a speech and I was crazy Eddie, so today I'm Father Michael. We believe we are on a mission from God. Seriously, crazy, call us crazy. That's what we believe. The people who work in our industry believe we're on a mission from God, because if we don't keep the press going, this is what's happening. Now, the press is evolving, and there are other ways to protect free speech. There are private bloggers. We know about all that, but we don't think that's enough. We think paid journalists doing the job that they've been doing for decades and decades really is what is going to make things happen and keep things free. So, we're going to get back to this a little bit later and why this is so important. Let me take a minute and tell you who I work for and what this company actually is. I work for Morris Communications. It's a 5-6 decade old company that's headquartered in Augusta, Georgia, but it's got stuff all around the world, literally stuff all around the world. So from a revenue perspective, the biggest division of Morris Communications is this one, the newspaper publishing division. We have 12 daily newspapers and a lot of non-daily newspapers. Up until 2008, we actually had 27 daily newspapers, and we had to sell them. We were in financial trouble. We had to sell off a bunch of newspapers to sort of keep in business. But it's still a very good and viable business, notwithstanding the fact that we lost a lot of money in the past few years. We're going to get back to what we're doing about that, of course, because that's what this presentation is all about. We're in the radio business. We've got dozens of radio stations across the country, and we've got this really cool station on the French Riviera, Monaco. It's the only English speaking language in that part of the world, in that part of Europe, and it is in Monaco, and it's a very cool place. We're in the traveler publications business. Most of you guys have been in hotels. You know what Where is, right? You've seen Where magazines. Yes? Any nodding of the head? Anybody seen Where magazine? It's like in every. I have to give you another $1. Don't. Okay. It's really in every hotel in the world, and I mean that. I mean, we have these publications in Moscow, and China, and Singapore, and London, and of course in almost every big city in this country. We're in book publishing. We have a very cool book publishing division. Not doing so well financially. Used to do better. Not doing so well financially, but we have literally about 4,000 titles currently in print. It is a big book publishing division. We don't print, we don't do novels, we don't do ordinary nonfiction. We do specialty niche publishing in the area of a lot of outdoor stuff, hiking and kayaking and rock climbing and a lot of really cool things like that. It's a very interesting book publishing division. Cable broadband, we own broadband in Western North Carolina. We just own that business. We've got it there. And then I guess I should add, it's not up here, I should add that we've also been we're in the technology business. I started a company in 1995 called Morris Digital Works, and we have been selling, until recently, when the economy took a big turn southward, we have been selling millions and millions of dollars of software to companies around the world, software that we create, publishing software, and I'll give you some examples later, that we create right there in Augusta, Georgia. So we're actually in the technology business in that regard as well. So what am I going to talk about this morning? Well, the focus is on the business side. It's about time I got around, like 15 minutes into the business side of geekdom from a newspaper company's perspective. Specifically, I'm going to talk about audience performance, revenue performance, digital first. I made reference to that. I'll explain it later. We're going to talk about some cool stuff that's happening in the industry, not necessarily at Morris, but across the industry, and then what's ahead for us and what's it all mean. So I want to do some numbers. So I think you'll find this data interesting and surprising. So bear with me. There's a bunch of numbers I got to go through. So digital first. Would you guys be surprised if I told you that our websites in every one of our 12 markets are number one or number two among all websites that are created in those markets. We're number one or number two. Does that surprise anybody? Why didn't it surprise you?
Especially for students, and they're looking for stuff locally, they're looking for information. I tell them, go to Savannah Now. They pick up, we get a newspaper delivered, they've got an article, they want to know more, I tell them start at Savannah Now. Because the newspaper has the information, they've researched the information. And so if you're looking for stuff locally, it makes sense, that's the place to start. And for all we say about, yeah, we want to know what's going on globally, worldwide, blah, 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 we all actually want to know what relates to us, and what relates to us is what's in our local newspaper.
God, do you work for us? Or?
No, but I'll take a job.
All right, well, that's great. Okay, so she's right. Practically speaking, here's another very simple reason. We have a lot of content on our websites, and it changes out daily. And there are very few websites where that is the case. There are great websites all around the world, and there are very few where the content is that dynamic. There are very few websites where the conversation with the public who's engaged with those websites are as robust as the public conversation with our websites. That conversation drives a ton of traffic, doesn't it, guys? Kevin, doesn't it? So our websites are number one or number two among all local websites in every one of our markets. That's point number one. Hang in there with me. When you compare our websites against, so our websites are basically news websites. They fit into the category of websites called media websites, okay? When you compare our websites against all media websites that present content in our markets, right? So now we're talking about all the big national guys. Well, I guess the first thing I should tell you is that the number one website from an audience garnering perspective, the number one website in every one of our markets is Yahoo News. The number two website, or the number three website, is us. So in Amarillo, Texas, there it is in red. I don't know if you can see it. That's one of our markets, Amarillo, Texas. We're number two right behind Yahoo News in terms of audience. In Lubbock, Texas, we're number two right behind Yahoo News. In Topeka, Kansas, the state capital of Kansas, small town but the state capital, our website, CG Online, is number two. Yahoo is number one. In fact, Yahoo is number one, literally, as a media website in every market in the United States, bar none. Does that like surprise anybody? When I look at the data, it surprised the hell. What is up with Yahoo? That it would be number one as a media site in every market. And you could see the guys that fall below in those markets. So that's a local TV station, MSNBC, the Weather Channel, the Huffington Post, Fox News, Yahoo Weather, Google News, National Weather Service, Daily Mail, CNN, and so forth, Weather Underground. You can see them pretty much the same. There's Today Show as number 8, pretty much the same guys. So let's go to some other of our markets, Jacksonville, Florida. There you see Jacksonville is number 3, but not for long. They're behind a TV station in Jacksonville, News for Jax. That's changing, isn't it? That's changing. We've been a little bit up and down the past couple of years. I guarantee you, like by the end of the first quarter, Jacksonville will have slipped into number 2 position. Same thing in Savannah. Number 3 behind a local TV station. Where's Stacy? She's not here. There you are. That's about to change, isn't it? Yeah, okay, so, and then back to Augusta where I live, where the corporate headquarters are, number 2, and number 2 by a long shot, 7.9% of the market versus 5.1%, the leading TV station. Number 4 there is the Huffington Post, Weather Channel, MSNBC, CNN, so forth and so on. So that's what that looks like. So when you compare us, I've got one more of these sets of data that really sort of is going to drive home the point. When you compare us, again, in review, when you compare us against all other local players, we're number 1 or 2. When you compare us against all media players, whether they're local or national, we're number 2 or number 3. So here's where we have a little bit of a problem, and here's where you may want to give me my money back. Would you be surprised? Oh, well, I forgot this slide. Hang on a second. big cities. It's not quite the same in big cities as it is in small cities. The big cities have lots more competition. In Atlanta, the local newspaper there, the Constitution, is #2. But in San Francisco, the SF Gate is #4. In Chicago, the Tribune is #5. In New York, the New York Times is #5. Philly, #5. Dallas Morning News is #7. And Los Angeles Times is #7 in that market in terms of audience. They've got stiffer competition. There's lots more media outlets. Larger markets have a little bit of a trouble, but they're way up there nonetheless. Now, this is where the trouble for us starts to show up. Audience is really key because money follows audience. So that's why we're spending so much time talking about audience. In a minute, we're going to shift over to dollars. So would you be surprised? When you compare us against all websites, all digital operations, not just media, not just local. When you compare us against the universe of all, we really slip down, even in our own local markets. So the market that I'm talking about right here is Amarillo. We rank #12. #1 is Facebook. That doesn't surprise anybody in the room. #2 is Yahoo. That probably surprises a few people. I mean, who's talking about Yahoo these days? And there they are, persistent. Google is behind by quite a few percentage points. YouTube is behind that. I guess you could add those two together and then they would be #1. MSN and Bing are the top 6 in that Texas market. We rank all the way 12. I'm not showing you 7, 8, 9, 10 because there's just no room on that slide to do that. When you compare us to all websites, we're not quite as strong. Let's look at a few more. #14 in Augusta, not even as good as #12. Facebook, Yahoo, Google, YouTube, Bing, and so forth. Savannah, slip even more. We're #21 in Savannah, Facebook, Yahoo, Google, YouTube, MSN, Bing. In Jacksonville, again, #21. We got some new players here, and it's a little bit of a shift. Look at that. Yahoo is ahead of Facebook. I cannot figure this out. Yahoo is ahead of Facebook. Somebody shed light on that for me. I mean, I still can't understand how it is that Yahoo is like ahead of Facebook.
One thing with Yahoo,
yeah, help me.
I know everybody has a Yahoo email account, and when I check my email, they always have these big headlines. This
right.
sensational thing, and I always click it before I check my email.
You know what?
That's what they're doing.
Well, you're probably right, but I don't have a Yahoo account, email account. I have a Google email account, and so do all my friends, by the way. You know, in fact, I read a book by Shelley Palmer recently. He said, if you have a Yahoo email account, you are a dinosaur. Get rid of it. You know, seriously, that's what they said. It's wacky. But so anyhow, and there's Google over there behind even Yahoo, Facebook, and so forth. But who shows up in Jacksonville is #5. It's Craigslist. They weren't any of the others. AOL is #6. And there's Jacksonville is #21. Going to Lubbock, Texas, we're up a little bit, we're 13. Again, it's Yahoo, Facebook, Google, YouTube, MSN, and Bing. So performance is not as good in our own markets, right? We're not #1 in our own markets. #1 is these guys. The national players in our own markets garner way more audience, way more audience than we do, Facebook, in our own markets. Now that shouldn't surprise anybody, because all your friends are spending a hell of a lot more time, are they not, on Facebook than they are on anybody's newspaper website or anybody's TV station's website, so that shouldn't surprise you. So who's winning the local digital wars? I mean, that's what it says on the sign out there. You know, that's what Sloan put up there as that's what she told me to talk about. So who's winning the local digital wars? Well, I guess there's two perspectives. One is, if you compare us against all of the local players, we clearly are. When you compare us against everybody, we're not. So let's have a vote. Should you give me my dollar back? No, why?
It's still
Okay. I think it's valid. I think you could argue the point. No, you keep it. I think you could argue the point either way. You could argue it from that perspective, or you could say the big guys are still winning the local wars. And that, by the way, is a problem for all of us. You got to think about this. It's not just a problem for local media. It's a problem for local small business. I mean, think about it. I'm sorry?
If you were talking about local media, local news coverage, and relevancy is bigger than news.
Right. That's right, that's right. But you got to think about this a little bit bigger. I mean, think about it from the perspective of what happened in Main Street going back 20 and 30 and 40 years ago, right? Walmart, the biggest retailer in any one of our markets, right? Target, all the big national players are really local players, aren't they? So all these guys are local players too. There is an issue There is an issue with media. There is an issue that Facebook, Google, and everybody else, Yahoo, is kicking our butts in terms of being able to attract and keep audience. Yes, sir?
What do you think about some of these big players' attempts to really dig in and create these hyper-local sites? I'm thinking about the group that AOL just bought.
Patch.
I'm thinking about this sort of, they weren't a newspaper, they were a local media company, but TBD in DC that didn't exactly, you know.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question. So here's what I think. I think anybody who does it right, we at local media, whether it's newspapers or whatever it is, we should be scared to death. What I've seen so far is that those guys trying to do that very local thing with news and that other kind of information, they have failed persistently every single time, year after year. Am I scared of AOL Patch? Not in the least. I think AOL Patch, I know the guy who actually runs it, who's the president of AOL Patch. He used to work for our newspaper in Jacksonville, Warren Webster. Did you guys know that? Warren Webster used to run the Fernandina Bureau for the Florida Times-Union. He's the president of AOL Patch right now. I don't think he's got a chance. I mean, he's spending millions and millions of dollars, and I look at the numbers, so I'm not worried about that. But it could happen if somebody executes really well.
Sort of a follow-up. I mean, I see these other sites that seem to have some traction, like the ISIS, Gotham is in DC.
Right,
like that.
right.
But they all seem to have to link back to the local media. So do you think you see a benefit out of that?
Most of the time, I do. Yeah, I do. Absolutely. We like that. Yes, ma'am.
We'll also be scared of Google as a, quote, news agency, because once they've got your history, whether you logged in or whether it's just the ISP that you're logging in from, or, that they've tracked you, they start targeting the news to what they think your interests are. So if you looked at all Republican this week, next week you might not see anything Democrat. And worse and worse and worse. So it's really limiting that freedom of speech and freedom of information.
Well, I think targeting is inevitable, and I actually think targeting is good. If we in our newspaper operations were more sophisticated technologically, and if we had a bigger universe of people that were using our websites, we probably would be doing more targeting of news. We try to structure it in such a way that you were getting what we thought you ought to get based on your behaviors, based on your past behaviors. I think that's good. I'm not opposed to that kind of targeting. I think it's potentially problematic, but I don't worry about it from the perspective of like free speech and it's going to destroy the country. I mean, it has the potential to, but I'm not too freaked out. I better move on because we're going to run out of time. So they're kicking our butts, right, one by one, the big national players. But if you aggregate us and you look at newspapers as a whole and you compare our reach, check that out. So newspapers across the United States have almost 70% market share in the digital space. Yahoo is more at 50, MSN is at 25, CNN is somewhere around 20. I don't know what the exact numbers are. If you look at it sort of in an aggregated kind of way, the performance is pretty good. If you look at us one by one, it's an issue. 112 million uniques in the month of September, 64% reach. That's pretty damn good. 9.5% average visits per visitor. Those are pretty good numbers. 24.5 million average daily visitors every day over the course of that month. Not bad performance. Let's talk about revenue, because I'm going to drive home some more points related to all this on the revenue side. Yes, ma'am.
Good question. When you're saying digital, are you talking about website plus all the apps that are out there? Or you're just talking about website?
Yeah, anything that would be, anything that we do in the digital space, whether it's sort of an aggregated set of data, absolutely. So let's talk money, because we all know that money drives everything in life. Father Michael said, 15 minutes ago that it's all about free press and we got to protect the press because we don't want to look like we're living in China or wherever it was, that sort of thing. But really, and that's true, but really money is the bottom of everything, isn't it? Drives everything. So pure play. Now, what we're talking about is all the money that all of the advertising and marketing money that's really being spent here in America on digital, whether it's on mobile or whether it's on websites or whatever. So the pure play companies got 48%, almost half of the revenue that's being spent in the United States. So who are the pure play guys? Right? It's Google, it's the guys that don't have any old legacy business like we do, newspapers, pure play. So the Huffington Post, it's pure play. Google is pure play and so forth. These guys get like about half. We're not bad. 24%, 24.4% of all the digital revenue is coming to newspaper digital efforts, right? Marketing and advertising. Broadcast gets about 10.5, way ahead of them. Cable, almost nothing. Radio, almost nothing. Yellow Pages doing pretty good. Magazines and other print, 1.7%. Not so many years ago, the newspaper's rev share and pure play rev share were reversed. I'm telling you, in 2005, in fact, I'm going to show you something in a slide a little bit later. In 2005, those two were absolutely reversed. We had 48%, they had 24%. We've lost market share. I expected it. None of us in this business really thought, we knew that the big national guys were going to grow a heck of a lot faster than us. But, the fact that we hold that is probably still, it bodes well for us for the future. More data. I mean, the fact that the pure plays are kicking our butts is one thing, but this is an equally important set of data. This is basically data from, it's the last time I did this analysis, it's from the first quarter of this year, and it's changed a lot. So you guys in Jacksonville, forgive me, I know it's up probably at least 2 or 3 points. So 11% of all of the advertising-related dollars in Jacksonville in that first quarter, 11% of it was digital, and 89% of it was old legacy print-related. In St. Augustine was higher, 15. Augusta was 23. Savannah was 16%. Amarillo 21, 23. Our little paper in Brainerd, Minnesota, 13. Juneau 25. Kenai 11. And Athens 31, the clear winner here. And our Athens, Georgia newspaper, oh, you're kidding. Athens, Georgia newspaper, it was 31%, and then you see the others. This is important to us. I mean, it's really, really critical that we grow our digital dollar market share. Take a look at this. I'm gonna blast through some more slides here really quickly because there's only 5 or 10 minutes left. In 2010, offline marketing, which includes newspapers, television, radio, direct mail, et cetera, directories, 85% of it was offline. It was not online. 14.9% was online. In 2015, it's forecast to change a little bit, 22.7%. Most of it is still going offline. That probably surprises you. Most of it is being spent on offline channels, but it is growing every year. This kind of tells you sort of gives you a picture of where things are going in the big spend. Again, we're talking about all local advertising / marketing dollars. This is what was spent. This is what was spent by American businesses in 2010. It was $13.5 billion, and it's forecast in just 5 years to go to $24 billion. This is really interesting. I'm not going to talk a lot about mobile. It's a whole nother subject, but it's really interesting. If you're related to this business at all, you got to know this. 2/3 of that $24 billion in 2015 is going to be in the mobile space. You know what it was last year? It was like a couple percentage points last year. Small. This is the growth. If we're in this business, we got to really worry about that. We got to play much bigger and stronger and heavier in the mobile space. And aren't we, Mark? Yes. And Travis, aren't we? Yes, we have to. This is a little bit worrisome for me. When you look at that slide I showed you, the 24.5% that went to newspapers, 73% of it was spent in untargeted run-a-site banner ads. 18% targeted. I'm going to get almost nothing in paid search, email, video, a little bit. This is like newspapers in general, not Morris. So our share, the money that we got, that 24 it was like in run-a-site banner advertising. That's a problem. Let me show you why. Online display run-of-site, that stuff that runs across a website and is not targeted, it's going to be down in 2015, 52%. Online targeted display is going to be up 806%. We better reverse that, or we're not going to be in business much longer. We better be doing much more targeting. Email is up 93%. This is fascinating. Paid search. This is Google. Paid search down 15%. Interesting. Think about that. Keep an eye on that. Online video up 215. SMS texting up 1,007. I mean, who wants to be in that business? Yeah, exactly. Online coupons, daily deals up 1,730. You might think about that Groupon stock that just went out there, up 1,730% in the next 5 years. Interesting stuff. So this is a forecast for the newspaper side. This is for us. $3.3 billion is what was spent with newspapers in 2010. The number is forecast to be 6.2 in 2015, but that's just one forecast. Here's another forecast that's not nearly as bullish. 2010, $3.6 billion, and these guys say we're going to be down a little bit in 2015. I totally don't believe that. I don't care about this slide. It's nonsense. Here's what I care about. This line right here, the blue line. $4.25 billion was spent by local businesses on digital marketing in 2005. 24.7 in 2015, 20 billion. I mean, look at that growth. There's so much opportunity if you're a local business player. Our job, we say this all the time, our job is to take these two lines and go like that. You know, we have to have this line get closer to that line or we don't succeed. We actually fail. Because money is leaving print, we actually have to get much more of the spend that's going on or we don't succeed. So where do we go from here? Well, we go digital first. You saw that reference to digital first earlier. There's a guy named John Payton, CEO of JRC. He's a friend of mine. He coined the term digital first. He's actually now, he's actually the CEO of JRC, and this company right here, Media News Group. This guy created such a revolution in the newspaper industry with this sort of digital-first approach to business. Morris is a company that followed him. Others are following. This company is following. And in fact, this company is now in his hands. And he is running the second largest local media company in the world. The first one is Gannett. The aggregation of this company and his JRC company, which has 18 newspapers in the Northeast, Journal Register company, the aggregation, the sort of merger of those and his being put as CEO of them is a real telling thing. It basically says that the money guys, the guys that control all media money, are basically saying, we want this guy to sort of be the revolution and control it. Digital first, what does it really mean? So here's what we say. Here's the line that we all say. We are a digital media company. We are a digital media company that happens to print newspapers. That's what we say about ourselves. That's what digital first actually means. It also means investing in technology, advanced publishing solutions, digital sales, alternative storytelling, crowdsourcing, lots of cool things. Speaking of cool things, I want to show you a couple, and then we'll kind of wrap up, because I think I'm getting close to out of time. New York Times. Everybody knows New York Times, right? I'll bet you don't know this. How many developers are in this room? Hands. Few. Not that many. Well, you should know about this. I didn't know about it until recently. You already know that the NewYorkTimes.com is an unparalleled source of news and information, but now it's a premier source of data too. Why just read the news when you can hack it? I know you can't read that back there. So they've opened up their entire database of news to any developer. Any developer can get free API access into the New York Times, the single biggest, the wealthiest source, practically, I'm exaggerating, of data in the world, historic, because they've been around so long. And you could do anything with that content. You can build any kind of app, any kind of website you want. And so here's just three that I picked out. There have been dozens and dozens that have built. Something called Visualizations by this guy, Jer Thorpe. Our artist, Jer Thorpe, uses Time Article Search API to create data visualization. I don't even know what that means. Tufts University, the View tool helps you create annotated maps of concepts and digital. I don't even know what that means, but they use that. We read, we tweet the visualization maps, tweets of NewYorkTimes.com articles. There are dozens and dozens of them. Developers have said, what a rich source of data. Here's another one, also for you developers. IRE, Investigative Reporters and Editors, a private organization of the most elite investigative reporters and editors. I used to be a member of this thing when I was young. The most elite group of investigators, reporters in the world. They built this API into the US Census data, and anybody can get access to it and do amazing things with census data. Cool things. I'm not talking about some guy's website. I'm talking about stuff to make this available to the public, to make this available to you, to make our data, to share our data across the newspaper industry with the world. There are lots of those. What about Morris Digital Works? What about a little company, a little tiny company based in Augusta, Georgia? Well, check it out. And I'm talking about cool things that we're doing because we know we have to become digital first or we die, right? What about cool things we've done? Well, we built what we think is the first ever newspaper site management system in Drupal. First ever. It was years ago. Developed dozens of open source, free, widely adopted Drupal modules. The domain access module that we developed in our company with help from guys like this one right here, sorry to blind you, The domain access module is now used by nearly 6,000 sites worldwide. Little tiny company in Augusta, Georgia did that. Really cool. We developed a CARS classified system for Australian, I should say for the Australian telephone company. There's only one in Australia. A $4 million project. We developed technology, we developed software. I got to go to Australia and close that deal. That was kind of fun. We developed classified software publishing tools for Associados Brazil. It was a $1 million project. The largest media company in the country of Brazil. Spotted photo blogging software used nationwide. This is really cool. I mentioned that Journal Register company. They were challenged last year to figure out how to publish their print newspapers and websites on open, free, open source platforms. They succeeded. July 4th, 2010, Independence Day. I think that means more to the developers in this crowd than the rest of us, but it's really cool. I don't have time to talk about these apps. There are so many wonderful, wonderful, rich apps that are being built in our industry. The Washington Post thing, really, really cool. This Philadelphia Inquirer, really rich kind of stuff. Want to talk about it, don't have time. The Orange County Register, just awesome. That's it. That's the presentation, rush through. I can't tell you how much awesome stuff is happening. I'm not bragging, it's survival. We have to survive. We believe we have to. We believe the country needs us. We're on a mission from God. Father Mike says we're on a mission from God. We have to do that. So what's the future? Where's all this go? Why am I even here? Well, I'm here because somebody asked me to speak, and I said to myself, well, this is a cool opportunity to come and talk to people and share something about this mission of the worldwide, not even American newspaper industry, and what it means and what we're doing and why, it's to share. And also to tell you, we hire. We hire. We have lots of geeks working for our company. There's one of the coolest ones in our company sitting right there. If you're interested in a job, talk to that guy right there. Raise your hand, Kevin. Really, seriously. Or have your friends that are here that might be thinking about a job. We hire, and we do amazing things, and we're on a mission from God. So if you want to be on a mission from God, as opposed to just working for somebody that, whatever, there's plenty of whatever out there that you could go work for. Our industry, I'm not even talking about our company, our industry is a great place to think about going to work. That's my presentation. Thank you very much. Any questions? Any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
How's the newspaper industry, as far as the revenue model goes, heavily dependent on display ads, that sort of thing? What are your thoughts on?
Okay, that is such a cool question. If you have any interest in this, you might want to stick around for the answer. Mark Jenkins, that guy right there, is the digital media sales director at our newspaper in Jacksonville. You and or Travis, answer that question. Where are we going? Are we just selling display ads in the future, or are we doing way other cool things? Talk about Solo Mo, Mark, would you?
Yeah, we're definitely doing some new things. We can't survive on much
Yeah, I would.
You mean like paywalls specifically, like New York Times is doing stuff with paywalls?
Yeah.
And what are you?
Yeah, we're actually playing with that ourselves. I don't like it. He doesn't like it. He doesn't. We don't really like them, but we're sort of like experimenting because everybody's experimenting. I don't think there's a big future unless we really shift. Our Savannah newspaper, we put a halt to doing any paywall experimentation there. Although you got to buy the app through iTunes, and it's a very cool app. So, but what I was talking about was it can't be about advertising. It has to be about services. If you look at the forecasts, there is a tremendous amount of money that is moving from advertising services to marketing services to what we call digital business solutions, which is not advertising. So a texting solution, it's going to go up 1,736 points. Remember that slide back there? So that's a digital marketing business solution. We provide those to businesses in our communities. Social stuff, helping people do stuff in the social space. We do that. We've launched that this year in 4 of our markets, including these 2. There is a lot of, we're moving from ordinary advertising solutions to providing business solutions that businesses need to succeed in the digital age. You had a question, somebody.
I was just saying, how much, well, first, who does the projections, you find your projections?
A lot of that came from, some of it came from Burrell and Associates, some of it came from an organization called BIA Kelsey.
How much weight do you put in there? Because I think back to like media predictions, when you say 2006 or present.
I think I put a lot of weight. The one that said that 3.6 was spent in 2010 on newspaper marketing and it's going to go to 6.3, that's going to be spot on. That's my view. Spot on, that's my view. I know it's crazy, but it's. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much.